Okay, we got FDR-C, take two, soft sticks.
Am I looking at Dante or Bobby?
That was so close. Sorry.
Welcome.
I like to say that I was brought in to save the world.
We really believe in a world where everyone has access to clean air.
What we don't often get as founders is to be seen as human.
To win clients that, are billion-dollar businesses.
And once we launched the new features, it really allowed for us to 2x our revenue.
There were actually two reasons why I started MedHall. First and foremost, my grandmother, Mary Lou Steele, she was a type 2 diabetic, double leg amputee, and my family had the hardest challenges in getting her to her medical appointments. With her being wheelchair bound, we didn't have a wheelchair accessible vehicles. Doctors didn't really know how to help. It was so hard to find transportation companies that could provide transportation for her needs. And so we just kind of felt at a loss. I have been building healthcare software for over 12 years. So before I started MedHall, I worked in clinical and research informatics, building and designing software solutions for health systems, pharma companies, as well as various digital health companies.
To me, entrepreneurship is really a form of expression, just like any art form, where you're really trying to share something, a vision you have for the world. It hits home for me around air quality because I developed asthma when I moved to Detroit, actually, about 8 years ago. And so that was a watershed moment for me, realizing how much the environment really impacts your health. One thing I realized in discovering that is that there was no data to prove or understand what's happening in the environment in real time. Fundamentally, what I can get up and do every day, and it's also exciting that we can build a sustainable business around it.
The origin story is I had just sold my previous company and I was traveling, and then COVID hit. I came in, I was appointed by the SBA to come in and essentially do what Cypher is doing now, which is connect the dots. I like to say that I was brought in to save the world. Sorta. All right, save the small business economy, help create policy, help figure out how to navigate this new world.
When I first met Janae, I was working at a top 5 bank, so analytics and forecasting is my background, but I was working in risk at the time, managing all of the delinquent debt, so seeing billions of dollars of delinquent debt come across my desk. So I was very familiar with the problem in the credit market, and that's whenever I met Janae, who wanted to solve this problem from the business owner side. How do we get money into the hands of people that deserve it, that need it?
But I have been in procurement for 20 years. I started first as a corporate employee, then I turned a consultant, and then became a vendor basically in the space. So it was years of just tapping into that network.
Our strategy was, let's build a consumer app, not necessarily because we believe that the business will be built on top of consumer, but that those capabilities will allow us to develop the right user experience, understanding how to use AI, how to build AI agents in this world. When we started, there wasn't a bunch of agent frameworks that exist today. And so we were trying to figure out how do you build those capabilities. And then once we got to a good place, it gave us a good reference to go to customers and show them our APIs, our coaching engine can be used to create these types of experiences. And so in a world where people are trying to figure out what are agents and what can they do, we showed up with here's what they can do, here's what they look like, because we built it. Not just here's our API or here's what it could do, should do, but those actual proof points. Businesses control more of the purse when it comes to healthcare. Either people get their health from their employers or from the government, but the idea then is that if you're trying to sell to consumers, a little bit harder when you can sell to businesses who represent millions and millions of those consumers. It's allowed us to be a small team and to win clients that are billion-dollar businesses.
We kind of pivoted our go-to-market, and we were initially, when we first spoke, hey, let's go to the lenders, let's help them do better, be better, lend better. And then it got to a point where we felt like we needed to be, one, more innovative in our approach to the market, and using that approach allowed us to actually shift into governments, which people hear B2G and they're like, oh my God, what an uphill battle. But because we took that approach and we had so much conversation, we don't face the same typical government sales cycles. We get paid by our distribution channel, and so that has essentially changed the trajectory of Cypher. We started consulting our customers, which are governments and foundations and all the people who are making the decisions to move the money, we started consulting them on how to create policy. And of course, that policy aligns exactly with what we're building.
We decided to really coin that term of relationship intelligence versus relationship management because we want to add more intelligence to the relationship. You may come into an organization working with them under the procurement department as a vendor, but you also can work with sales, you can work with marketing. The relationship can expand from there, but you started in procurement. So it was more than just managing, it was adding intelligence to that relationship to see how it expands.
Communities are showing up and expressing this data, but also missing that gap of trust. And so when I look at the market, I didn't realize what we were doing at the time, we kind of fell into it, but we started with this ground truth of trust with the folks who needed it most, which happened to evolve to where now we built the most advanced air quality data management system. We're becoming this unified data layer to ensure that not only communities have this data in a trusted way, but also government agencies have this in a very frictionless, but most of all, trusted way.
Having raised capital before, I knew I wanted to do things differently in my second round. I had made a lot of mistakes in my first time raising capital, so I knew the second time I raised capital, there were two types of investors that I was looking for. One, either healthcare partners, so healthcare investors who could directly introduce us to health systems, understood the healthcare landscape, and the other type of investor that I was looking for were actual operators. So folks who had founded their own companies, who were running their own companies, they had been in the trenches as an entrepreneur. That was really important for me. And so finding that in an investor is incredibly rare. What we don't often get as founders is to be seen as human. And in addition to having an investor who can provide that capital and provide that expertise, they can also provide this very human experience and support for you as a human going through this sometimes very traumatic experience. There are a lot of peaks and valleys in the founder journey, and having a partner who deeply understands that, from whether it's operating the company, but also how you can manage your family throughout that process as well.
To be real, and I'm really thankful to be, part of peers who I can lean on to kind of face this thing. Couldn't explore that without people who you trust, who would check you, can call you, say, hey man, come on man, can you go to Z instead of just stopping at D.
One of the biggest things that has happened in the last 12 months is that my dad actually passed away. I used that as an opportunity to reflect and really determine what I honestly wanted out of life, how I really wanted the company to move forward. It's really incredibly important that founders not get distracted with all the things that are going on in the world. Having started a company in 2017, so went through the first AI boom, went through COVID, went through the George Floyd protests. There are a lot of opportunities to get distracted. But the founders who keep their heads down, stay focused, stay true to their mission and values are typically the ones who rise to the top. I'm really looking forward to what I'm calling this transition from founder to CEO. We're shifting from that early stage startup to more of a mature digital health company.
And one of the things from a leadership piece that I found myself making sure that I consider is that there are some negative consequences that can come with that. Your team can get burned out. You can get burned out. You got to get stuff done. You got to crank. You got to cook. But at the same time, it's like find a way to make sure you're thinking about how to do that in a sustainable way, because it's a long haul. And so while those learning cycles are shorter, you can do more. You want to be in it for a long term. So you got to remember both sides of that.
We're able to do 10 times more than we could do a year ago. We're able to build products and software features at 1/100th of the cost that we could a year ago, which in hindsight, man, I wish AI would have been where it was. 3 years ago when we started building this, we could have saved a couple $1 million. Now we're really looking at the story that the data is telling us in bias. What does that mean for equity? What does it mean for these systems as they're multiplied and all of this bias is baked in and then also multiplied? For us, it's how do we become this infrastructure to combat all of the bias that's being baked into a lot of these processes? How do we make sure that as the human is taken out of these decisions, how can we evaluate the data and do our best to really become that voice in the room?
Being a founder is like a masterclass, not only in professional development, but personal development, individual development. So I know for myself, just as an individual, as a founder, as a builder, I just always want to be open to new things and perspective. That's the only way that we can kind of keep up with how fast things are changing, and I'm also cheap. So as long as I can do it for 1/10 of the cost, I feel like we're all moving in the right direction.
With all of the new technology that we're using within AI, it really allowed for me to see the full vision of my platform compared to when I first started. I was like, okay, we're doing bits and pieces of what I'm seeing in my head, but it's not quite there yet. And now I feel like I'm actually starting to see the vision.
How big can this thing be? And I think I've been doing a lot of inner working, introspection the last couple months, just exploring that.
I'm really excited that we have been able to bring on some strategic partners that will really help us scale not just our visibility, but scale our revenue and just scale our path forward.
Wait, what's my name? Start over. Part 2. Wait, can I do that again? $2025 was an amazing year for us. Once we launched the new features, it really allowed for us to 2x our revenue.
We're entering a world where